and I'll just let you know when that is up and running. All right, we're streaming live. We can begin.
Right. I'd like to open the board meeting for the Central Oregon Community College for Wednesday, July 13, 2022. I'll start with the lands acknowledgement. Central Oregon Community College would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land our campuses reside on are the original homelands of the Wasco and Warm Springs people. They ceded this land to the United States government in the Treaty of 1855. The Paiute people were forcibly moved to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation starting in 1879. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds, and the Klamath tribes claim it as their own. Descendants of these original people are thriving members of our communities today. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. With that, can I have roll call, Jen?
Yes. All right, calling roll. Alan Unger.
Here.
Bruce Abernethy.
Here.
Laura Kraska Cooper.
Here.
Erica Scatfold.
Here.
Jim Clinton.
Here.
Oliver Tatum.
Here.
I know we're waiting on Joe Krenowitz. Lori Chesley.
Here.
Alicia Moore.
Here.
Betsy Julian.
Here.
Anne Marie Hamlin.
Here.
Zach Boone.
Here.
Laura Bomey.
Here.
Kathleen Knutson.
Here.
Sean Tevlin.
Here.
Tyler Hayes.
Here.
Shauna Berry.
Here.
Mark Reinecke.
Here.
And Jen Kovitz. That ends the roll.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? No. Is there any public comment, Jen?
There is not any that we received online. I didn't know if the guest in the room was there for public comment. Okay, thank you. No comment.
Well, it's that time of year to elect new officers for 2022-23. First, we will have nominations for chair. I'll just want to say Bruce is up to speed. We've been doing a great tag team over the last year. And so I'm looking to Laura. Do you have any nominations?
I will nominate Bruce Abernethy to be the 2022-23 chair of the Board of Directors for Central Oregon Community College.
Are there any other nominations?
I'll second that one.
Okay, with that, I'll close nominations. All those in favor of Bruce being our chair, raise your hand and say aye.
Is he willing?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Bruce.
Well, it's too late now for him to say anything.
Next, we'll go on to vice chair. Jim, do you have any nominations?
Following the long tradition of nominating people who are absent, I'd like to nominate Joe Krenowitz.
I'll second.
Other nominations? Seeing none, I'll close nominations. All those who are in favor of Joe Krenowitz being our vice chair, raise your hand and say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So Joe will be our vice chair. Now it's got me down to talk about board committee appointments.
Hey, Alan, I think we turn it over to Bruce now.
Well, we do, but it's got me on the agenda for doing board appointments. So I was just going to say that I don't do the appointments this year. Bruce will do them this year. So that I was not going to make any changes until Bruce decides what changes need to be made. So with that, Bruce, congratulations, and it's your meeting.
Thank you very much. And I'm
checking in from Bar Harbor, Maine. So I have a built-in incentive to not let this meeting go too long, given that it's already close to 9 o'clock here. Anyway, I appreciate the confidence in me of the rest of the board. And Alan, I just want to say how much I appreciate your leadership over the past year, steady hand, and really strong connection to OCCA and a number of the other important networks that COCC is a part of that. So very much appreciate your long and excellent service. As far as the board committee appointments, this is something that I'm hoping, let's say, over the next month. I guess, although since probably not having an August meeting, might be a little longer than that. I will reach out to each of you personally and see, are you happy with your current assignments? Are there ones that you would like to change? And I hope to get that wrapped up relatively shortly, but it is not available or not ready at this time. So let's move on to the consent agenda. I just want to make one quick notice that in addition to all the stuff that was sort of public in our minutes, we have included the formal resolution that we adopted at the last meeting, kind of a little bit of a limbo thing in that it wasn't a formal agenda item at our last meeting, but that is included in our consent agenda. So I don't know if people have any questions or anything they want to correct as far as the minutes. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Laura Kraska Cooper. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim Clinton. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move on to the information items. And the first one has to do with the financial statements. Anyone have any questions for Kathleen? We always start that at questions, and there usually are none. But I should have made it a little bit larger. Any questions or comments? As much as commendations is a good thing, this is definitely one of those line items where kind of no news is good news. I'm not hearing any questions related to the financial statements.
They're positive.
They certainly are positive. So great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the new hire reports. Any questions or comments for Laura? Laura, I'm curious, how does this compare to sort of previous years? And I'm curious, kind of I don't know if it's fair to say this is a post-COVID. I mean, is this normal for the time of year? Are we behind? How are we seeing as far as applicants and number of applicants for positions?
In terms of just COVID or just generally?
Generally, I mean, sort of, I guess my question is, given this time of the year, how does this compare to previous years? And or if you have any insight as to whether you think COVID might or might not be having an effect?
I would say our applicant, this is like the faculty window for hiring is kind of past. We do have a few application pools still open for some faculty positions, but that window is really high, usually from the first part of the year till anywhere from April or May. So that is less this year than right now, that period that's gone. But I would say generally our applicant pools, we still have a lot of positions that are open, and our applicant pools are, I would say, average. They were really small a year ago, and then even the year prior to that, they were what we would consider generally normal. But I would still say they're pretty small, especially in our technical positions or anything that's kind of unique. We have some positions that one in our curriculum area that's another kind of unique position, and so those don't tend to get very big applicant pools, and they're even less right now. So I think, I'm sorry. Oh, Yes, thank you, Betsy. So Betsy mentioned we did have a number of failed searches for faculty. So some of those have now resulted in like a full-time temp type of like a 1-year faculty position that we have open. And so I would say that is higher than, let's say, last year. And Betsy, of course, can chime in. But I would say the quality of our applicants is quite good in the pools. And we've seen that over the last 6 or 8 months, that while the numbers are small, the quality of the applicants and those that we are hiring are really engaged and very good quality applicants. So I hope that answers without going too much.
That was an exceptional answer. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You get a gold star. Thank you. You know, and again, I think it goes without saying, but I mean, if there are things that the board needs, obviously convey those to Dr. Chesley and she will work with us. I mean, we obviously, you know, give that power and that authority to you and your team there, but there may be, you know, some things from a remuneration to a policy or things like that, but let us know if there are additional things that the board can do other than to continue to wish you good luck in that effort. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. We are highlighting more of our benefits right now. That seems to be a trend. Of course, we have a presentation, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about some of these things later, but we are trying to highlight the benefits of working and the perks of working at COCC and some of the flexibility that our environment provides, and also the engagement with our students. So that, and then we are hearing from applicants that lots of them are saying our benefits are readily and happily accepted when they're hired because people are grateful for the, you know, the extra help and the generous benefits that we have.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So moving on to the real estate committee update. Yes, sorry, I can't see people, so please just jump in. Thank you.
Okay, I'm here.
No, I see you now.
I'm really excited to hear more about Anne-Marie Hamlin becoming Vice President of Academic Affairs. So I know we might talk about that later. And then what is the difference between Charlotte Gilbride's? Is it just a title change or does she have a new position?
Charlotte has always been paid to the foundation and actually has never been a college employee because she's paid out of the DAP fund. So we have moved her employment to actually become a college employee. That's why she's in the her role as and title has not changed. It's that she is now a full-fledged college employee and not paid out of the foundations. She was technically our only staff person because we're all contracted back to serve the foundation as college employees.
Okay, well,
yes,
congratulations.
It is.
And also,
it is,
okay,
yes.
good. Yay.
It's a win-win.
Nice. Okay, those are my questions.
Good
Thank
eyes,
you.
good eyes.
Yeah.
So did you want to hear more about Anne-Marie Hamlin at this point? I couldn't tell whether that was an actual question or a rhetorical one.
Okay, it's in these papers, so.
Yeah, it's in this part, okay. We're gonna do it now. Anne-Marie, stand up because you're awesome. This is Dr. Anne-Marie Hamlin, who is a longtime English faculty member. Yeah, it makes her awesome. She has a PhD in English from Claremont University, and she has taught many years. She has been a department chair of humanities here at the college for a number of years, and for the past 3 or 4 years, 3 years, she has been one of our instructional deans. Anne-Marie is very highly respected here by all of us, and especially by our faculty. I will point out one of the things, she doesn't know this yet, but in the coming year, I'm going to want her and Christy Walker to present on anti-racist pedagogy. She has been a leader in our diversity and inclusion efforts and in bringing that into academics. And as I said, she's awesome. You will get to know her well. She's jumping right in, and I'm just glad she keeps coming back. Anne-Marie, would you like to say a little more about yourself, something you think we all need to know?
I don't know that there's anything more that you need to know about me at this point. I've been on the job 3 days now. I'm enjoying the new ride. I'm looking forward to the opportunities and challenges ahead. I am immensely grateful to Betsy Julian for setting me up for success, both personally as a mentor and in her last 6 years as Vice President of Instruction, because she has really prepared the path well for the college for instruction and for anyone who was ready to step into this role. So thank you.
Okay, and any questions for Anne Marie?
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations and welcome in this new role. Next up is the Real Estate Committee update. And Joe, are you willing and able to make a report on that?
Yeah, yes, we did meet. We covered some conversation in regards to the Aubrey Butte property that we have out on the market, and further discussion with the Real Estate Committee in regards to the changes of the cost of money, as well as interest in that was not at the level we anticipated if we were able to go to market last December, January, February, but time has changed a little bit. And we feel comfortable where we are right now. Dr. Chesley is working with our realtor advisor, and I think she may have something to report on that. In regards to the projects down that William Smith Properties group is working on, we do have some changes on that. I think that's on our agenda for further discussion. Is that right, Dr.
Yep.
Lori?
Yep.
Okay. So if we can go from there, I don't have the details on what we needed to do, and I'll have to lean on our president on that one.
Yep, it is under new business, and it's an additional right-of-way dedication, and that'll come up in just a few minutes on the agenda.
Great. Any other questions before we move on? Let's move on to the grants update. I know I certainly received a nice report in the mail. So let's hear from Zach and Sean about the good work they've been doing.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm just here to introduce Sean. The joke with Sean is that we hired Sean last year via remote interviews the whole time, and he had not been on campus, and we drove to the Portland area like I did. And then when we were first on campus, we said we were so glad that someone else that was 6'3" was joining the staff in addition to me. Sean didn't know that I was only 6'3" in my dreams. So that's my introduction of Sean. No, Sean Tavern is a grants manager at CFCC February 1st of 2021. And it's really, honestly, the term is overused, but kind of taken it to another level in grants and just really worked closely with faculty and staff to bring key funding to a lot of key areas. You guys all got the grants report in the mail, and I'm going to let him now share a little more about the last year of grants. Sean Temple.
All right.
And Sean, this is me, the floating head, just telling you that when you're that far away from the owl, it is harder for those of us on Zoom to hear you. So please do project.
Being the owl.
Thank you.
It does look like an owl.
And it does hoot once in a while. Yeah.
What?
Want to start?
Oh.
All right, so does everybody have the grants annual report, first of all? I have extra copies. All right, and can everyone, Jen, you can see the screen?
Sure can.
There we go. All right, so yeah, Sean Tubman, grants manager here at COCC. Good to see you all. I think I presented maybe 6 months ago or so. Did an update. Now we have the actual full wrap up of 2021. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of that 2021 annual report. You've seen the hard copy. We have also an interactive version online because that's the way things go now. Some people like things in hand, other people want to see things online. So I'm just going to go through the online version real quick with you. This will just be a real quick and dirty overview of 2021. So last year there was 6 million total in grant funds that were managed by COCC. 2.3 million of that was new grants. We had 49 total different projects last year going on. 20 of those were new grants that were awarded last year. And we had 26 different funders. So lots of really, really great work by faculty and staff here to get this all going. I'm the grants manager, but all this stuff, like the faculty and staff are the ones that implement the projects, so nothing happens without that. So I'm just gonna go over basically one project from each of our 4 main campuses to highlight the most impactful project at that campus this past year. So one in Bend, one in Redmond, one in Prineville, and one in Adams as well. So we will start out in Prineville. So as you can see, when you go through this online version, as you scroll through, it kind of takes you in on the map, and you see that this first project is in the Oshkosh Mountains outside of Prineville. This is paid research for forestry students. So we received $20,000 from the Roundhouse Foundation. This is a small but impactful grant. Like I said, centered around the Prineville campus. And basically the project is to implement a small pilot project, pay students to conduct research with the Central Oregon Forest Stewardship Foundation. And they're researching the impacts of fuel reduction projects and wildfire mitigation strategies. So it's a really cool project. The cool thing is that it's paid research, which basically allows a lot of students who normally can't participate because they need to have a job. You know, a lot of this work is occurring in the summer. They can't necessarily do unpaid research because they need that income. This actually pays them to do that research, allows more diversity of students to get involved. And we know that research is very good for students in terms of their college success and getting ready for their career afterwards. So that is our Prineville project. Next one here, advanced manufacturing. So this is our Redmond campus. So this was a consortium grant with 7 other Oregon community colleges. COCC was awarded $373,000 from the U.S. Department of Education for this. And it's basically to improve our manufacturing program. So welding and machining, bring them up to industry standards, basically. So the project is going to develop new short-term certificates that industry recognizes, and it also is updating equipment to get us up to date with what the way industry is going. So for example, we just purchased a 5-axis mill, which is something that's state-of-the-art equipment. A lot of employers want their employees to use one. Now we have this really, it's like $100,000 piece of equipment. We've never been able to get it without a grant like this. We also got simulation software, so students can actually go in remotely or from school, and they can practice on these machines in a completely simulated environment without actually being able to damage these machines. If you practice on these expensive machines and you get it wrong, you can really damage a piece of equipment. So it's a good way to practice without damaging these machines. So like I said, this is going to impact the MATC after campus. So that is our Redmond highlighted project. Next, we will go to Bend. Yes, I will speak up. So low-cost childcare for COCC students. We received $243,000 from the U.S. Department of Education for this one. Most of the funding goes directly to low-income students at COCC. It helps subsidize their childcare at the Little Kit Center at OSU Cascades. The Little Kit Center is run by OSU Cascades, but in partnership with COCC. A lot of our ECE students are going to be working down there. So this program basically provides either free or very low-cost childcare to low-income students who enroll their children at that daycare center. The only thing they have to do is basically meet certain academic requirements. In this first past year, we already saw a lot of participants, their academic achievement went through the roof, basically. So it's already having a really big impact just in this first year. So really cool project here in Bend. Of course, that's open to any of our students. It doesn't matter where you come from, but it is centered. And last but not least is the K-12 summer programs at COCC Madras. So we received $27,000 from the Oregon Community Foundation. to run summer camps and credit courses for high school students in Madras. This is a great example of our partnerships in the community and how we build beyond not just serving college students, but actually in the K-12 realm as well. So all these programs last summer were aimed at basically credit recovery and just catching students up after they missed a lot of credits and fell behind during the COVID era. So that's another very impactful grant, Madras. So those are the kind of the highlight from each of the different campuses. If you get a chance, scroll through this. It'll take you through, I think, 27 different projects that we highlighted. Takes you around different parts of Central Oregon, shows you where the grant money is going. So this is just a different way of sharing our success in addition to that really great annual report that the marketing and public relations team put together. So are there any questions for me?
Well, there was a few years ago, we were overwhelmed with grants. So we're in a sweet spot now with, or not?
To when or which you referring, we were overwhelmed?
Oh, years ago. It was just like, hey, we've got so many grants going on that it's kind of getting too many.
Ellen, at one point, that was more state level grants, which we didn't necessarily have a choice to be involved with,
Okay.
as opposed to ones that are driven by institutional goals and strategies. So,
Great.
yeah, definitely in a sweet spot.
Great. Good job.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll pass on kudos as well. My day job is as a grant writer. This is very impressive, and I really like the breadth. And people can sort of see the roles that grants can play, not only as sort of pilot projects, allowing the college to try things out, and perhaps bridge it to new, more sustainable efforts. So again, congratulations, Sean and Zach and everyone on your team there. Let's move on to major transfer maps and common course numbering. Alicia and Tyler.
And if you could just stop sharing your screen, that would be great. Oh, there you go. You're good. Thank you.
I'm happy to introduce you, Tyler Hayes, who's our Director of Admissions and Registrar. And Tyler's met with you, I think, for sure via Zoom, but I'm not sure if in person in years past. But one of the things we wanted to catch you up to speed on is a lot of the work that's happening across the state to support students who in their transfer. Earlier today, I was on a statewide meeting and identified that at the Oregon Public Universities, more than 25% of their students transfer from an Oregon community college, which makes this work even more important as that number is apparently growing more and more over time. And so Tyler sits on a variety of different work groups, one of which is called the Joint Transfer Articulation Council, Commission, Committee, one of those things across the state. And their job is to help spearhead transfer work across the state, whether that's legislatively mandated or efforts that they bring forward. So he's going to talk you through some of those initiatives. I'm going to provide some commentary along the way, but feel free to chime in with any questions you might have. Tyler,
Great.
you want to share the screen?
Yeah. I will just say I'm as much excited to have Sean on board as anybody else because I'm not the only one turning the clocks back and changing the batteries in oil. That's always.
I would like all that.
That's always our light bulbs. Yeah, there's two of us now that can actually do that. All right. So yeah, so as Alicia mentioned, I'm going to just provide some updates on a couple of fairly large initiatives that are happening at the state level around transfer work for transfer students. So good work that's happening. And really the two initiatives I'm going to talk about tonight are common course numbering is one of them. I'll talk you through that a little bit. And then another one that's called major transfer maps, which are actually new degrees for transfer students, which you may have heard a little bit about already. So I'm going to start with common course numbering and really just what is it? What is common course numbering? So as I mentioned, this is statewide legislative work through Senate Bill 233. And basically the gist of common course numbering is to basically get our state to come into better alignment across our introductory and lower division courses so that when students do transfer from institution to institution, they're not feeling the impact potentially not having these courses in alignment, which ultimately ends up leading to students potentially paying for courses they don't need to pay for. So that's the idea behind Common Course Numbering. Again, this is a really good initiative and a really big initiative across the state to come into alignment with our courses. The good news is that there are some commonalities already. So across the state, our 100 and 200 level courses are used by both community colleges and Oregon Public Universities, or OPUs, to deliver lower division courses. So that's good. We already have that going for us. The other good news is that there's a lot of our courses across the state that are already in alignment for the most part. Most commonly, Math 111 and Writing 121. We are, for the most part, in alignment when it comes to the subject code, which is the MTH or the WR, and then also the course number, so the 111 and the 121. So, as well as learning outcomes, because that's all coming into alignment includes both the instruction side of the house and more of the subject code, course number of credits as well. So it's, again, a fairly big project. There are some differences, and this is where a lot of the work is going to come in. One example of some differences across the state are just the credit alignment across our schools. So Writing 121, since I have it up on the screen here, is actually a really good example of this. So across the state, there are some institutions that offer Writing 121 for 4 credits, and there are other institutions that offer it for 3. So you can imagine when a student takes it for 3 credits and transfers, what they potentially experience at a transfer institution, and in some cases may end up having to take an additional course to catch up, which means they're again spending more money. So bringing those courses or those credits into alignment is very important.
How do they calculate a 4 credit versus a 3 credit? Is it the amount of the length of the course? Does it have to do with the quarter system? Like, how are those different?
Yeah, so it's all the quarter system. So, and Betsy may be able to jump in here a little bit to help with that. Do you want to talk a little bit about the difference?
Sure. The number of credits in a case like this, where it's a lecture class at all schools, is really the number of hours in the term that for an in-person class, the person would be sitting there. So it'd be 4 hours a week for a 4 credit class, 3 hours a week for a 3 credit class. Mm-hmm. And the difference is really somewhat up to the faculty, whether they feel like they can get the amount of learning needed in 3 hours a week, or whether they think the students benefit from that extra time. That's where the philosophical difference is.
And Eric, I would add, we're talking about 17 public or community colleges, 7 public universities, each who think their way is the best way to do this work. And whether it's Common Course Numbering or the other pieces Tyler's going to talk about, that's what makes this challenging.
Great question. So another difference across the state is the different course numbers. So again, going back to like the 214 and 218, communications is a really good example of this. We have different courses across the state that are communications 218 and others that are 214, but they're the exact same course. So it just creates confusion when students are transferring. So bringing those course numbers into alignment is important. Course series is another example. So at some institutions, like a psychology series, it's 201 and 202, where at other institutions, it can be 3 courses, so 201, 202, and 203. So it goes into even that level of depth in terms of bringing those into alignment. And this is just kind of fun to look at. I'm a registrar, so I like data. And this is actually data that we're using to help with this work. But this is a list of the most commonly transferred courses across the state of Oregon over one academic year. And what you'll see is obviously Writing 121 and Math 111 rise to the top. But what's pretty incredible is that students have transferred those courses nearly 30,000 times over the course of a year. So what this tells us is that students are transferring a lot, and that better alignments can only help these students. So we're actually using this list to prioritize the courses that we're going to bring into alignment first.
So how is the work actually getting done? Alicia alluded to this a little bit, but as part of Senate Bill 233, the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, so HEC, had to put together what's called the Statewide Transfer Council that includes faculty, transfer specialists, high school representatives, and students as well. And this is the council that I sit on as a transfer specialist, so it's great to have a voice in the statewide work and what we're doing. But this is really the group that is driving the work forward. And then there's a lot of subcommittees that are being formed underneath the Transfer Council. There's a framework committee, which is mostly on the operational side. So a lot of registrars, curriculum folks that are getting together to kind of build a framework for how this is going to work, how we're going to bring those numbers into alignment. What are some of the stipulations? How are we going to actually designate these courses so that students see them and know that they're actually a common course? That's part of the work that that group is doing. And then there's a lot of faculty-led groups, subcommittees that are actually working on the learning outcomes. So getting together and making sure that our learning outcomes align so that when students do transfer, it's as if they took that course at that transfer institution. So that's the whole idea. So a lot of moving parts. What is the timeline? So it's a pretty quick timeline here. The work has been going for about, let's see, the Transfer Council got going at the beginning of the year. So it's been about 1 year into the work. And so beginning of 23-24, we are going to align these courses that you see on the screen. So there's 11 total amongst math, writing, and communications. So that's the first group of courses. And then beginning 25-26, we need to align an additional 30 courses. So the idea is that maybe like another 15 a year. We're kind of spreading it out a little bit because, as you can imagine, this is a lot of work. And again, Alicia mentioned the number of folks that have to get together across multiple institutions to agree on a direction for a particular course takes a lot of time. And then once those changes actually happen, there is a pretty significant trickle down effect, depending on if the institution does have to take their writing course that's 3 credits to 4. You can imagine how much that impacts and all the degrees that impacts at that institution. So, which is why we're taking this in kind of smaller chunks, doing a little bit at a time.
Hey, Tyler, I apologize if I didn't hear it or wasn't and missed it. Are these things that the whole committee is working on? Or I guess where I'd love for you to distinguish between what things the whole committee is working on and which things COCC has a specific focus. Because I'm guessing in some of these cases, the realignment won't be an issue because we'll be on the right side. In other cases, we're the ones that may need to switch.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, that's an excellent point, Bruce. So you're, yeah, absolutely. So the Transfer Council is kind of guiding, the general guidance. So we're actually selecting which courses are going to be tackled first. Those subcommittees, as I mentioned, are kind of really getting down to it and actually bringing those courses into alignment. And then when they don't align, the Transfer Council will kind of step in and make that decision at that point. But yes, at COCC's level, actually right now, so far, when you look at the list of courses for the 23-24 year, for the most part, we are already in alignment. So we're not going to have to make significant changes, which is great news for us. But there will be, and to your point, there's going to be decisions that are made where COCC may not be in alignment, and then we will be required to come into alignment, which will then be the work that has to happen on our campus. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on from common course numbering and kind of switch gears here to another initiative that's happening across the state, which is major transfer maps. And as I mentioned, these are new degrees. And what is it? So this is also legislative work through House Bill 2998. And as I mentioned, they're new degrees that are meant to prepare students to transfer to an Oregon Public University in a particular major as a junior. And that's kind of the key at the very end there, in a particular major. Because you might be wondering, well, how are these different than our Associates of Arts Oregon Transfer or Associates of Science Oregon Transfer? These are much more prescribed degrees within a particular major. So if the student knows what their major is, they can get right on track to take the courses they need to then transfer to an Oregon Public University and be a junior within that major, instead of being at a junior status when it comes to their general education courses. Which if a student then, with an AAOT, they then make their decision at the OPU, there's a potential for them to have to catch up, right, within that major, which means, again, they're spending more time and more money potentially. So the idea
is to reduce the number of excess credits if a student knows what major on transfer.
So do those students identify the public university they kind of want to go to, and so it aligns up with the path?
Yeah, excellent question. And this is actually one of the challenges with the major transfer maps is that, again, as Alicia mentioned, even within amongst the Oregon Public Universities, there's not a lot of alignment amongst the Oregon Public Universities. So when they're getting together to create these degrees, there's actually variance amongst the degrees. You know, for example, you have to take these 3 courses for these 3 universities, and then these courses for these 2 universities within the degree, which makes it challenging. So while I'd like to say it's just for students that know what their major is, it's also fairly important for these MTMs at this point that they know what their transfer institution is.
So the challenge with that, part of the reason we're bringing this to you is to help you understand the context as these start coming forward when we, whether the major transfer maps or we have to change our degrees for Common Core numbering alignment. The challenge with this, with the major transfer maps though, and again, it was a conversation statewide earlier today, is Guided Pathways attempts to say, you know, take this cornucopia of majors and degrees that you have and shrink it so students can get into similar meta majors where they have a lot more commonalities. What major transfer maps does is take that already big cornucopia and make it even more massive, right? So and Tyler's going to show you some examples of what some of them are now, but for one major transfer map, let's say it's in hypothetically psychology, it's one that's coming up. There may be 4 different options within that one major transfer map, depending on what institution. Could be even up to 7 if all 7 universities don't agree on what those course requirements are. So instead of just one major transfer map, we have potentially to be approving 7 different ones within the same genre. Yeah. So the students' choices and the conversations with students through advising are incredibly important to really help get people on the right track. Because I'll be honest, and this is again a statewide conversation, this is causing a lot more options, potentially a lot more confusion for students. If they are going this way or 99% sure they're going to go that way, then they change their mind and want to go a different direction. So it's going to become more complex for sure. It might work a lot better for some, but it may work against others.
We all know our students change their minds too, right? Like they don't know exactly where they're going and they may change their mind. So what are the degrees? So this is a list of the degrees that these MTMs can kind of be built under. So they can be created as in AAT, which is our Associates of Arts Transfer, and these first 2 are actually brand new. So these were actually developed and created specifically for these major transfer maps. But they can also end up being one of our Associates of Arts Oregon Transfer degrees, as well as the Associates of Science Oregon Transfer. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the notation because it can get a little confusing, but technically they could create some sort of advising guide for students that's not a degree. And if a student completes that advising guide, they can ask us to notate it on their transcript when they transfer, but it's actually not a degree. I anticipate that most of the MTMs will actually be under the first 2 degrees there. That's why they created them. I don't foresee us seeing a whole lot of AOT, ASOTs, or notations, to be honest with you, but it could happen.
And just to point out, the one of these that you have already approved is in the AAOT, the one in education. So you have approved the categories of the AAT and the ASD, but we haven't yet brought a specific one forward. The one that was actually in good enough shape to be brought forward is in that AAOT.
And I'll kind of show you that right here. So currently approved on the left-hand side. So this is what's been approved at the state level. Those 5 degrees, we have 3 years to implement them once they've been approved. So you haven't seen all of them yet. At some point you will, but you have seen the AAOT and elementary education. And then there's some additional that are coming soon on the right-hand side. So HDFS is human development, family science, and then obviously the psychology and sociology as well. And what is the timeline? So I will tell you that originally the timeline was to develop and create 3 MTMs a year, 3 degrees a year. The state has since backed off that and said we only have to develop 1 a year until the Common Core numbering work is completed. And then we have to ramp it back up to 3 a year. The reason they did that is because they actually did realize that the common course numbering work is the work that's actually going to help the major transfer map work, because the more courses come into alignment, the easier it is to create these degrees without all that variance, depending on what institutions are going to transfer. So that was the purpose for that. As Betsy mentioned, we're offering the AAOT in elementary education starting fall 22. So that's one you already approved, and then additional ones will be coming your way in the near future. Not to throw you off here, but core transfer map, CTM, I wanted to just touch on this because this is also kind of part of the MTM work. So the core transfer map is really just a set of 30 general education credits that's already been developed and created that guarantees that a student meets 30 general education credits for a bachelor's degree when they transfer. So in other words, this was really built for those students who might only come to a community college for a term, 2, 3 term, maybe just a year, and they just need a guide as to, hey, what courses can I take that I know are guaranteed to transfer? And that's why they call it kind of that core. So it's 30 courses, but why I bring it up here, or sorry, 30 credits, why I bring it up though is that the core transfer map is actually built into each MTM. So every MTM has this core transfer map built into it. And then they, again, get kind of more prescribed based on the major after those 30 credits. That's all I've got for you. Any questions on that?
I'd just like to say this is a long time coming, and I'm glad it's coming. I think it's in our students' best interests. And I'm glad the legislature created the impetus for the community colleges, the public universities to get together to do this.
Thank you for sitting in those meetings.
Yes.
You're deciding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Tyler is too humble to take the credit for the influence he has had on this process. He really understands the implications for the community college and our students in a way that few people who had been working on the project did. And that's why he ended up on that group, was because he has that depth of knowledge and the breadth of its impact, but also, as you saw from his demeanor, can deliver it in a way that people can actually hear it without being alienated. So he is doing our students a real major favor by playing this role.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
And thank you, Betsy, for sharing that additional information. And hopefully, Tyler, next time you'll be a little less shy when Betsy's not there. But anyway, appreciate that. Appreciate all the good work. And we get to hear about some more good work around diversity in hiring. So Laura and Shauna.
Please make sure you let us know if we're not talking loud enough. I want to introduce Shauna Berry, who she's one of those silent but mighty contributors. And so she does a lot of work with our recruiting, hiring, onboarding. And so she is going to present the first part of our presentation. And again, let us know if we're not loud enough, and then she and I will switch about halfway through. So.
Thank you.
Shauna.
Okay, you pull it up.
Oh, do you want to pull it?
Yeah. I will pull it up and then. Screen share.
Yes.
Glad you guys all know how to do this.
Well, that's why I work with the chief information officer. I'm loving right now.
Make sure we- Okay, can everyone see this?
It looks great.
Okay, good deal. Okay, thanks,
If
Laura.
you just rapidly click, you can confuse me.
Yeah. All right, thank you. And thank you for having me again. I presented at the May board meeting a little bit with Alicia around diversity and hiring. And this is a follow-up that Dr. Chesley asked us to do to kind of share with you the different tools, different tools we use, what we currently ask applicants
a little bit about our employees, and so just to give you a baseline and overview of what's currently happening, and then some takeaways, and then also some next steps that we want to take mid-range and long range. So we'll just dive right in.
I'll look at it works.
Oh, it doesn't.
Arrows.
Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. So presentation goals, I kind of mentioned a couple of these. Highlight the tools we use to gather data around race/ethnicity. Well, those are interchangeable in this presentation, so race and/or ethnicity. Share data on our current COCC employees based on ethnicity. Share data on our applicants based on ethnicity. Identify the takeaways, and then, like I said, outline some short and mid-range next steps or strategies. So tools we use. So we have some fabulous tools here at COCC, one being Argos, which is a reporting tool and then we gather through that the employee race and ethnicity data. Argos takes information from our banner system and puts it into some very nicely readable tools and reports. Second tool is our People Admin, which is our Human Resources Information System, our HRIS. That's our recruitment database. And that is we use for our applicant data tracking. And we have Tableau, which the institutional effectiveness team has been amazing in creating and helping different departments create reports. Laura and I worked with them quite a bit in the summer of 2020 and then into 2021 to create some reports. A couple of them being the vacancy report, a turnover rate, and termination report. What we're going to highlight today is the HR posting and hiring trends, and even drill down into the diversity Tableau report. So this is the Argos report, and it spells out employees by ethnicity in 2020. We're able to plug in January 1, 2020, and this report comes back. Anyone who was hired and employed by COCC during 2020. This is the data and the numbers that we have on the different ethnicities, and then the total numbers. So as you can see, it's broken down into different employee classes: administrator, classified, full-time faculty, part-time instructors, and temporary workers, and then totals. So we're able to see what is a snapshot of our employees for that given year. So this was in 2020. Yeah, 2021. Same information, of course, different data, different numbers, and then 2022. So like I said, it's at our fingertips. We can run it on demand, which is very, very nice, and through Argos. So, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, thank you. The data. This is important. Thank you. The data comes from when anyone is hired. They fill out an employee information form, and on that form is a question, our questions about demographics, and it is purely voluntary. So that's a big caveat with this data on employees, and then we get into applicants. It's if people answer those questions that we're able to pull the numbers out. Thank you. So that's on the employee information form.
Is there a, like, not willing to answer or something like that?
Yes.
But was that in those graphs that you just showed it as tables?
It was, go back here. It's not in here,
Okay.
You know, it is information we can get, you know, that like how many employees and then how many answered those questions.
Mhm.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I know that, you know, some people are unwilling to answer questions like
Right.
these, and so it's, I just wonder how many are.
Yeah, no, and on our applicants, we get to that, we can see more of that. We'll be able to see how many total applicants and then how many actually answered the demographic questions.
Okay.
So that is information I'm sure will be good for. Yeah. Mhm.
So some people identify in more than one group. How do you manage that?
Yes, and so that's good. They will show up in both groups. And so there could be,
Like 0.5, 0.5, or?
no, they'll show up as one in each group.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Or triple counted.
So just a little bit of summary in 2020 based on the data we pulled through Argos. We have 15 persons of color in 2020, 14% persons of color, and then 15%. So pretty much steady throughout the 2020, 21, and 22 years. So that's the employee side. Moving on to applicants, we pull the information, I guess, from people admin. Another caveat with this, just like with the employees, it's voluntary information on the application itself. So right now, and this is what we currently have on the application, and this would be a takeaway or a strategy that we need to look at to say, are these the right questions? Are they the right responses? I mean, are we giving the people the right, choices to make? Should we add some questions to this? So that's work we're going to do, but I wanted to show you right now what we have on the application. We do ask their gender with the two options of male and female at this point. We do ask the date of birth, and then about race and ethnicity, Hispanic or Latino, and the optional race category, citizenship, information about disability, and then information about veteran status. So again, this has been in our application. We haven't really tracked on it until Laura and we worked with institutional effectiveness. So it's exciting data, but it's also exciting to be able to look at it and tweak it to, do we need to? And what is the information we want to get out? What would be valuable to us in order to increase the diversity in our hiring? And again, voluntary.
Thanks, Shonda. So we're going to switch here, and then we're still talking about applicant data at this point on ethnicity. And these are just, we recognize are a little bit small, but this is just to give you some samplings of the Tableau tool. So if you've been on our website, you may have seen other data presented in the Tableau format. But this would be kind of a summary if you look at the top under the bullet points for our administrative, classified, and full-time faculty. And over the course of the years 2020 through 2022. And you'll see that the bars will tell you the difference, the different areas over the years. So if you go kind of to the middle, that's where it starts talking about the persons of color, and then the whites that are interviewed. And again, this is all related to the information we gather on the applicant form when they do that in people admin. And then here's just another presentation of the data broken down by specific ethnicity. And so you can see over the course of time where we have changed in the last couple of years. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the last few years have been wildly different than prior years in terms of both applicants and also our employees. So the numbers, it's hard to make it's hard to predict what's going to happen at this point. But as we talked about before, we are seeing just steady applicants, not huge numbers, but we are seeing that the quality of the applicants are very good. So here's just another representation of data that we are gathering. And as Shauna mentioned, we did not have any of this prior to, we started this in late 2019 in terms of identifying metrics that we wanted to, and of course, doing the ethnicity and diversity information. We knew that there were gaps in our tracking. And so we've been working on this and really trying to at least get solid measures going forward. And I want to give a lot of credit to some of our folks in, i.e. Chris Egertson specifically, and then also Todd Detweiler, who's in IT, and JJ Shu, who's also in IT, but was in fiscal prior to that. She's now in a different position. But they did a tremendous amount of work helping us pull together the data and put it in these visual formats that we can present. This kind of tries to pull it together a little bit for you, so you can kind of think about what we're trying to demonstrate here with our numbers. So the first two rows are total number of postings and applicants over the course of these last 3 years. So postings means a position. So when we make a posting, and you can see that 2020, we did not have very many. We were kind of in a space where we weren't hiring a lot. And then we did have in 2021, 61. And you can see we're barely through June.
or, through June, early July, and we already have more postings than we had in all of 2021 in this current year. And then the total number of applicants, you can see the numbers have went down in 2021 and are starting to increase now. So to Bruce, your point, this gives you a little bit more data specific detail about the number of applicants that we're starting to see. And then the total applicants, now this is where we're going to kind of start to transition into those individuals that actually responded to our demographic questions from the applicant pools. So in 2020, we had 341 that responded, and then we had, and then that, to Erica, also your question related to in terms of the total number of applicants, that it kind of spells it out in that row. And then 348 in 2021 and 297 in 2022. And so it's, just quick math, it's less than half. So, and then applicants of color, the numbers are here, but so 82, 89, and 60, but staying roughly 20% or more. We had a bit of, a little bit higher in 2021. Applicants of color actually interviewed. And so we have 11, 19, and 9. And again, keep in mind for 2022, we're only partially through the year. And then those percentages are, 13, 21, and 15%. And then applicants of color hired, we have 6 in 2020. We had a whopping 10, which turned out to be 53% in 21. And then we, thus far this year, we've only had 1 new applicant of color hired. So the percentage says 11%, but obviously it's really not that high at this point. We don't, when we did a, pre-run of this, we don't exactly know why that number is really high in 2021. We don't know if we just magically got more people to respond. Obviously the response numbers haven't gone up, that much. They are slightly more, in this case, they're actually above the 50%. So, or if, we did do a little bit more hiring of those individuals in that year. All right. Question?
Can I ask a question?
All right, thank you, Laura. Yeah.
So when I look at this, it appears to me that the percentages you've listed under applicants of color is the percent of all applicants that responded to the question. Is that correct? So for example, 24% is the percent of total applicants that responded to the demographic question who were applicants of color.
That's correct, right? Yeah, that's,
okay.
Yes, that's accurate.
But then when I look at applicants of color interviewed, that does not appear to give me a percent of the pool that responded to the demo who were interviewed. What I'm interested, it appears to be the percent of those who were applicants that we actually interviewed. And what I'm interested in is what is the percentage of applicants that we interviewed who were applicants of color?
Okay.
It looks to me like each cell is a percentage of the cell right above it.
Yes.
But actually the very lower left one, applicants of color hired for 2020 is not correct. It should be 6 out of 11. It should be in the 50-something%, not 5%, right?
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. The intent of this was to kind of show you the funnel once they get into the pipeline, if you will, and then kind of show how it goes from that point. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, the reason I think that my question is important, Laura, is that it looks as though, we had 24% of the applicants be, persons of color, but then it looks like we only interviewed 13% as applicants of color. And I know what you mean by 13% here, I think, is that it's 13% of those who identified as applicants of color who were interviewed. And I think it would be important to know what is the actual percentage of those who we interviewed. So in other words, are those that we interviewed, is that percentage roughly correspond to the percentage who identify among the applicant pool? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you. And we can surely follow up, or however, whatever the board would like, we're happy to do to make it clearer.
Also, it would be useful to know, like in the last 2 rows, the same information for people who are not persons of color. So you can compare the people of color success rate with the people who are not persons of color, how successful they are.
Wouldn't it just be the inverse minus it from 100?
It might be for numbers, but it might not be for percentages.
Why is that?
In other words, I see in 2022, I see one person applicant of color hired. So you think this says that 89%, the success rate for non-persons of color is 89%, and the success rate for applicants of color is 11%?
I see where you're coming from, Jim. I see where you're coming from. Yep.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Okay, any other questions? So again, we can follow up if there's more information you'd like to see. And then this is just a reference point, just, we didn't know if anyone would want this information, or, ask us a question related to this, but this is just Central Oregon data as of 2021 in terms of ethnicity. So this is just a reference point for you. So some of our takeaways are that we're attracting and interviewing individuals with greater diversity in their race and ethnicity. We're doing okay, right? It's hard to say how we are as compared to a lot of prior years because we do not have that data, but we are attracting and interviewing individuals with diversity. And then we do have the tools and metrics we're using are giving us solid data, but we need more. We need more data than we have. And then the voluntary data, both the applications and the new hires, is in fact helpful, but we need to strengthen that data gathering in order to kind of fulfill getting more data. And then as compared to Central Oregon demographics, our recruiting efforts are attracting applicants of color. And then we do know and we recognize we can do more and are taking steps to further enhance our recruiting and hiring. And Shauna will spend a moment here just giving you some of our short and long-term strategies. Any questions before I pass it off to Shauna?
Well, I have one more question. What is the probability or the ratio of persons of color filling out the questionnaire compared to people not of color? Do you have any data on that? In other words,
Are you talking? I guess the only one. Let me just go back.
You kind of bias the results if the percentage of people who are responding to the questionnaire is different for the two groups.
Well, I don't know, and I may not be understanding your question fully, but
well, you have total number of applicants in 2022, 622, but only 297 of them responded to the questions.
That's correct.
So the question
what's your question?
What is the probability that persons of color do the questions compared to the?
Okay. I see. Okay, I get it. The qualitative answer would be not as likely. I don't have a number, but we could go and look, and I don't know if we have actual data that would tell us that, but
I don't know how you get that number, but I, for one, are irritated by questions like that, so I don't fill it out.
Right.
Maybe if I was a person of color, I'd be more likely to fill it out.
Right. Okay. All right. I understand where you're going. Thank you. All right. I'm going to turn any other questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to Shauna. All right. Thank you very much.
I guess.
Oh.
That you had a screenshot of Tableau and there were some other little bubbles you could, right? Because diversity is more than just ethnicity. And I know that's what you're focusing in on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're taking a look at that form so that you can capture more points, right? Because there's more that's recognized even as like basic data points at state, federal level, world level. So that's really great. But I don't want to okay, I think you need to go through your short-term and long-term goals, and then I might have some questions about like what else you're doing to address those other points of diversity,
Okay.
right?
This may address, oh, sorry, this may address some of that.
I've been
but
wanting to
feel free
ask him, but I know your
Oh,
slides are
no,
coming, so
go ahead.
and I don't know that this is the right time.
Yeah,
so
so, yeah. I think-
I'll hear your plan and then.
Okay, well, and these we shared, most of these in May. So next steps in the strategy, short term, like clarifying the hiring committee membership, tracking and reporting on the applicant demographics, do more of that. What else can we do? What, what is industry? What can we find out? And so the short term, there's a couple there, and then the mid-range, re-engaging in local and online employment fairs. The one we added here was, is really retaining, retention. We can attract and hire, but we want to retain everyone we can, of course, but retaining employees of color by specific supervisor training on how to build an inclusive team and how to not specifically retain persons of color, but trainings that will encompass that and through specific direct or group supervisor training. So that we added to the mid-range goals or strategies, but most of these were presented in May. So I don't, did you have a question beyond that, Erica? That
I think one of the questions, Shauna, is the third bullet down is tracking and reporting on other applicant demographics. Maybe where that's missing, there's other applicant demographics.
Oh,
Yeah, so address gender, address veteran status, address.
To track all those.
Right, and our Tableau reports, and I think you mentioned bubbles, and there are bubbles on the right-hand side, yes. That we
I wanted
can-
to click them.
Oh, I know,
I had to remember the PowerPoint.
I mean, it's such a powerful tool. It's really engaging, and I could spend hours in it, but we can. But that is an excellent follow-up. Is okay. Now, what we have this data, what can we do with it? What do we do with it?
Well, that's always the point, right?
Right.
If you have data, otherwise it's just kind of.
Right.
We say it's indulgent in healthcare, right? Because it takes time to collect data, right? People have to fill out the form. It has to be input in some way or analyzed. So yeah, I'm excited to see that you have short-term and long-term goals and that you're making plans for those other categories.
I should know, really the origin of this presentation, it comes from the board policy committee. About a year ago, I think, the policy committee brought to the board the recommendation that under something to do with my evaluation or my performance, under presidential performance, that our college would present an annual report to the board on our efforts to hire and retain diverse candidates. And so this is really the first iteration. So we fully recognize there are things to learn and other aspects of diversity. And I think this is one aspect of diversity that we focus on pretty heavily here. So this is a start that really comes from your direction to me, which then became direction to Sean and Laura, right? And Alicia and Christy, who all work together on this effort.
I have one more with the graphic where you showed to give us a little context of the groups within Central Oregon. If you could then have how many at COCC that we track, to see if the ratios are the same or that's just interesting point, right? Comparison. Yes. Yeah, and thank you. Yes, I remember that. I'm excited that you have all this data. So thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
I just have one question.
Sure.
I think it might go back to your very first slide or one of the earlier slides where it sort of breaks down. There we go. This may be a really silly question and it's out of my own ignorance, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on who falls in the temporary workers bucket, because those numbers are higher.
Yeah, so temporary workers, that the employee class irregular wage is another negative, but they're non-benefited employees. Yeah.
An hourly workers.
Hourly.
They would generally be an hourly worker. So for example, we have classified employees that are, let's say, groundskeeping or custodians. We might need extra help in the fall or in the summer, but the person would only work, let's say, 5 to 10 hours a week. And so those folks are paid hourly and they don't have benefits, but we do have a lot of them. We have a lot in
library, our computer labs. We have them for some of our testing, tutoring, proctoring. We have ones that help in labs and classrooms. So does that help give you some context?
It does. I remember earlier in the meeting, we mentioned that some of the faculty positions that we couldn't fill had to be turned into temporary positions.
Yeah, oh, that's right, yes, yeah. You mean you're not with all our terminology? No, but those particular workers, those temporary 1 year would be a benefit, so they would actually fall into the full-time faculty.
Okay.
So thank you for clarifying.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you very much for a great presentation. Appreciate all the work that's been done going into this, and like has been said, I think it sort of sets a baseline and helps us continue to move in the right direction. Let's move on to new business, and the first item is the Neighborly Ventures additional right-of-way. So Joe and Paul.
Bruce, because this is a conversation that relates to our joint venture with Williamson Properties. So because of my conflict of interest, I'm going to recuse myself. Could someone please text me when we're done with this?
Sure.
I will rejoin. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put this on my finger. Okay.
So this is Joe Cronowitz. We did meet yesterday, and with the Viridian ground lease project, they are in need to get an additional right-of-way dedication to the city of Bend. And there's an exhibit there in regards to what they're needing to go to in total. It was smaller in the beginning. It was added additional right-of-way, and now this is the final request or need from the city of Bend in regards to meeting their transportation goals and transportation requirements in meeting traffic volume that's going to be continuously growing in that area. I'll turn it over to Paul in regards to that legal stuff, if there's any questions.
Paul's not with us this evening.
Or not Paul,
But Mark's here and I've been.
Mark.
So the short version is that you've got this piece of land abutting the road. You're developing this part of it. As your development agreement for this part of it, you have to do your improvements along the right of way. The city would prefer that you do the whole right of way on your now. You don't have to do the work on it now, but you have to do the dedication now for the whole thing. And then when you develop those other parts, they don't have to go through the dedication process. Your plans just show how you're gonna put in the sidewalks and such. So it's pretty much just clarifying something from that you already determined a couple months ago what to do.
Is there any other questions that we can answer in regards to this request?
So it just seems like we have to do it, and it's okay, and it's a no-brainer.
Is there a motion? It's not quite clear to me what the action is that needs to be taken.
There's actually language in the resolution, because there are 2 steps to the resolution that need to be made. So you can either read, someone can either read the resolution or.
I'll move. I move to find that the college's real property necessary for the Shevlin Park Road dedication is not needed for public use, and that the public interest may be furthered by dedicating the property for City of Bend right-of-way purposes. Approved dedicating approximately 32,701 square feet of frontage along Shevlin Park Road to the City of Bend for right-of-way purposes, and authorize the president to execute and deliver such instruments and other documents as are necessary to effect the dedication of such right-of-way, all in such form and substance as the president and the college's legal counsel deem necessary and appropriate.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Oliver and Alan. I apologize. It's what happens when you double side print and miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions at this point? All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's move on to the president's contract with Laura.
Gotta get her back first.
Thank you.
Oh, let me send it. Gosh. Okay, I'm not that late on sending it. I sent it. She's coming back.
Good job.
How's the weather back there, Bruce?
Weather's nice, about 80 degrees. Yeah. I'm with a family reunion. We got about 62 of us here. We do this every 4 years. So.
A lot of opportunity for conflict.
No, our family gets along great. That's great.
Okay. So I did text her.
So do you have a special game or something that you play every time?
We have a game day where, you know, all age appropriate thing where you totally make fun of yourselves, and I'm sure it eliminates a lot of future political careers that people have been videotaping. And we'll have a variety show on Friday night too.
That sounds like fun. I don't know anybody else who does that. That's great.
Someone want to call Laura?
Yeah, I'll call her right now. I texted her twice. She didn't know we'd be so quick.
Or we could also go on to the applied baccalaureate line item and then just switch back to Laura after that's over.
I'll hang up so you can focus. She's trying. It won't take her passcode. She typed it wrong. She's very stressed. She's coming.
Welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry
Not
about
a
that.
problem.
That was user error.
Okay.
Okay.
Like we've never done that.
Yeah.
So what do you want to share with us about the president's contract?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so you guys may recall that you appointed Alan and me as the president's contract committee. Just to remind everybody of where we are, Dr. Chesley's contract expired June 30th of 2022. It was originally a 3-year contract, and we started negotiations a couple months ago. We realized that we should have done this several months ago, so we do apologize to her. And we've had a couple of executive sessions, but nothing's been decided. So what we did, you guys instructed us to work with Lori to see if we could come up with an extension or a new contract for her to go into the future, because of course, we're all very happy with her, as was demonstrated by the evaluation we discussed last month. So to that end, I would like to go through the terms of the tentative agreement that we have with Lori, subject to board approval. So as you guys may recall, the original contract was a 3-year term, and this will be a 3-year term with a rolling term, which I think you all know is pretty standard among college presidents. So each year, 1 year falls off and another year goes back on. And the net effect of that is that we don't have to execute another new contract in the future. Of course, we always have the ability to mutually agree to amend it. The second item is that the base salary will be $232,780. And that number represents the same increase each year. That represents the original contract that Dr. Chesley signed, along with the same increase that the senior leadership team has received every year, except there was 1 year where Lori declined to take a raise because of her observation of some financial challenges the college had, and she thought that was important symbolically. But other than that, this is not really a change other than the annual increases to the salary that she started with. We did propose a $10,000, essentially a longevity bonus that she would get, but in negotiating with Lori, her preference, and we didn't care, was to put it into deferred compensation. Then I'd say the other major financial item was a proposal that we would pick up Dr. Chesley's portion of her PERS contribution. We'd pick up 1/3 in the first year, 2/3 in the second year, and then the full payment third year and going forward. We would pay Dr. Chesley's health insurance costs through age 65 in the event she were to retire when she's 64. So that would be a 1-year thing. Her annual vacation now is 20 days under the terms of the college's policy manual. And she's asked that we simply specify in the contract that her vacation would be 20 days. And Alan and I thought that was very reasonable. And then she asked to have 5 paid consulting days annually. And those would allow her to teach classes if she would like, or she can consult for other institutions or organizations. So those are the items that are changed. Everything else is the same that was in the original contract. Dr. Chesley and Alan and I have agreed on this subject to board approval. I think it's within the parameters of what we have discussed as a board. So I would recommend that we approve it. And I do have a draft motion, but obviously I'm open to any comments or questions that anybody would like to pose. And let me say that we do not have the contract absolutely finalized to sign because there are a couple of clarifications. I apologize for that. There are a couple of clarifying language changes that our council recommended yesterday, and neither Lori nor Alan nor I are averse to reviewing those, but we obviously need a little bit of time to look at them and talk them over. So my recommendation is that we adopt a resolution that approves the terms of the new contract, but allows the board chair to sign the contract after he is reasonably comfortable, after talking with our legal counsel, that any language changes from the original contract to this new one are satisfactory and not material changes from what the board has approved.
This is Alan. I agree with that. And just to note, Bruce has been in those discussions all the time too. So it's been a team of 3. And I'm not adverse that when the final contract gets put together, that it's Bruce who signs it as opposed to me, because he'll be chair. He is chair at that time. But yes, it's a fair contract. It's a contract that we all agree to, and we're just glad that President Chesley is going to accept it and move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, I will actually I will take Laura's comments as the motion. So is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Second from Joe. No further questions already. So all those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bruce, for the benefit of the minute taker, I'm happy to send my motion in writing to them.
Thank you. I'm sure this is recorded though, so you can get it that way as well. Thank you. Let's move on to the applied baccalaureate line item with Betsy.
Good evening. We were talking about the MTMs earlier. Another thing which is changing at the state level about degrees is that the state has recently allowed for the possibility of community colleges to offer an applied baccalaureate degree. And I am here this evening to ask the board to approve us investigating this possibility. So I am not coming forward with a specific degree. I am asking that the board give us the approval, which we need. This is step one before we can really begin any work on this, because this is a big change. This is a larger change than what we've done before with asking to add an AAT or an AST to our thing. So this will make accreditation changes. It will have other implications. And so as part of the steps have been laid out for us, and the first thing is to make sure that we have your support in investigating whether this makes sense for us to consider moving forward in this area. Like I said, this is not a specific, it's weird having two screens, sorry, I'm a little distracted here. I am not here with the specific one. Before we would do that, there are lots of other steps we would have to go through. And it would come back to you for approval once we had done the legwork and the research to say, yes, we feel like it makes sense for this college, for our students and our community to move forward with an applied baccalaureate in any particular area.
I'll note.
Are there any
I don't have any questions.
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear. Are there questions?
Oh, sorry, I'll make the motion. I don't know if other people want to ask questions, so. It's exciting to me, like in general, that we're taking a look, right? Like it doesn't mean anything, but at least we're taking a look.
This is like the concept stage is sort of what we're proposing here.
And I'll second that motion, and just add that I think this was an aspirational goal that we've had in the past, and that we are allowed by heck or the legislature to move forward with this. And it just makes sense to check it out to see if it makes sense for us or not to move forward in this area.
Yeah, in Central Oregon, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity possibly.
So I've got a quick question. I will be supporting the motion again because it's investigatory. I'm curious, Betsy, are there, is this something that most institutions that look into it decide to move forward? Most do not. What are the potential reasons why somebody wouldn't do it? I mean, I can imagine, again, not being an administrator, I can imagine why you would want to do it. What are some of the reasons why institutions choose not to move forward?
I would say that our location is a major factor in favor of us considering this. There are a number of community colleges in the major metropolitan areas where they feel like there is less demand and less need in their area because there are so many institutions doing so many things that finding their niche is a bigger challenge than it is for us. So that is one reason, because you have to be, there's pretty rigorous criteria of showing demand in your region, meeting a workforce need in your region, not having any adverse impact on any other institutions in your region. And so the more crowded your region is with options for students, the harder that is to prove. And another reason that some schools don't do it is that there is some complexity in the finances that has to be handled differently, because as it stands right now, and there are folks working to change this, but as it stands right now, students who register for the applied baccalaureate for those second 2 years of the 4 years do not earn FTE reimbursement. And so the institution has to do the research and the work to figure out a different tuition scale, a different way, a different funding model for that program. And that is one of the things that we would be looking into pretty carefully on this, is to make sure not just that there's a need, but that we can find a way to do it that students can afford and that the institution can sustain. So those are the two main reasons I've heard of people deciding not to, or they're just so small. Some of the really small schools just really don't have the capacity to look at this scale.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Jim?
Bachelor of Applied Science is pretty broad. You could fit pretty much anything under that. What type of actual programs do you think might be on the radar for this type of degree?
But the ones that have been most common that I've heard of are ones that are often sort of intended for people who have gotten their CTE degree and that want to have a possibility for career advancement into a more management area of that degree. Healthcare is the most common one on this, but it's also not uncommon in some of the trades, like manufacturing, where people maybe don't want to be a welder for 40 or 50 years, and to have that ability to come in and get sort of some management skills tacked on to their technical skills. We have, and some of these are similar to agreements that we currently have agreements with some universities where we do what we call a 2+2. The students take the first 2 years here and then take the second 2 years somewhere else. And that is very often a management step. So we do, a lot of our aviation students do this. Yeah, so it could be any number of things, but usually the second 2 years are less about the technical skills and more about getting some of the breadth that we associate with transfer degrees and things that help, like I said, with business and management experience.
Thank you.
Can I just add, for folks who may be listening or folks who may be wondering, I think Betsy made a really important point. It is hard, you know, it takes a lot of unique things to fall into place to be able to offer one of these applied baccalaureates. You cannot compete with local universities. There has to be a demonstrated workforce need. And so I think it bears saying out loud that what we are not proposing is doing any kind of degree that would compete with our good friends OSU Cascades. These would be very different. They would not be something that they would be offering. Just want to say that for the record.
And we have been speaking with them too. So they are well aware that we're doing this. We have such a great relationship with them. We are not in any way trying to undercut them, but there are things that they cannot do that we are more equipped to. I also do not think it's likely that we will be bringing forward a whole barrage of these. It's most common to have 1, 2, maybe 3 of these at any given school, not a wide range.
Good. Any other questions? Again, I can't see everybody, so please jump in. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to establish an investigative committee, and we'll take that as the language, or the person taking the minutes can use the language from the proposed resolution. All those in favor, raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. The next item has to do with the August board meeting and whether this is a meeting that we want to hold or whether we want to cancel it. And I'll have the floor open for discussion at this point. Lori, are there any particular pressing issues or concerns that you would like us to address?
There are not at this time, although we've been made aware through Peter McCaffrey and Paul Taylor that there may be a real estate issue that would be time sensitive with neighborly ventures. And they're in the process of working documents out with their attorneys that might require us to approve some slightly different documents than we have in the past. And so that could occur, in which case I would be looking for a short Zoom meeting. Of course, we would post it publicly. That could happen, but there is nothing else on the immediate horizon that would require a meeting.
Anyone else want to weigh in as to whether we should hold the meeting or cancel it?
This is Joe Krenowitz. I would make a motion to cancel the August meeting unless there is a time sensitive or emergency purpose in regards to real estate decisions that may be needed to be addressed in August.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. We have August off, at least tentatively at this point. Again, Lori, anything that that is important, I think we're more than welcome to, more than willing to come back into session to keep the work of the college moving forward. Next item is board member activities. Joe, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Mine's real simple. We just had a real estate meeting yesterday, July 12th, and that's all I had in regards to COCC activities.
Thank you. How about Alan?
I had phone calls as needed with the chair, vice chair, and President Chesley. So that's Bruce and myself and Laura. And I had phone calls with Bruce and Laura Cooper pertaining to the president's evaluation meetings. I attended Central Oregon Community College graduation, and I thought it was outstanding. And yeah, we were outstanding, and it was raining, but we had it figured out. And on the 29th, I attended the Becky Johnson OSU Cascades, Becky Johnson's appreciation party.
Thank you, Alan. Erica?
I attended the COCC graduation, and it's always fun to see see everybody celebrate all the students and all the hard work of all the faculty and everybody that contributes to getting these people to where they want to be. So, and the car, I know the car commencement isn't super popular for certain reasons, but it's so fun to see the whole families roll up, and like some of them are getting out, and some of them look really fun. There was a guy in like a rainbow tux that stood up out of the like, what is that? The
oh, they're partying live.
So much fun. I'm glad I could be part of that.
That's great. Thank you. Laura?
Yes, I also attended commencement, and I agree with Erica that that was really a fantastic experience. I agree with her. I love the group graduation, but seeing the family members come up is really wonderful. And I am extremely proud to say that my two nieces, one just got her nursing degree and the other just got her AA. And the one who just got her nursing degree just passed her, I don't know how you say it, but the NCLEX or whatever. It's basically, as I understand it, the nursing bar exam. That's how I understand it. And she has a job starting at St. Charles in Redmond. And she told me after years of basically living on ramen, she's like, I'm going to be able to pay my bills without worrying. So it's really fantastic. I'm super excited. And that's just proof to me of the importance of what we do and why we do it. On the 30th of June, I attended the President's Evaluation Committee meeting. On July 12th, the Real Estate Committee. And then I had numerous phone calls and email correspondence with Dr. Chesley, Mark, and Paul and Alan regarding the president's contract, which I am delighted to say after today's action, we're almost done with, and we'll have Lori locked up for life. Just kidding. That's all I have.
Thank you, Laura. Oliver?
I had a one-on-one with President Chesley, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Jim?
Real Estate Committee as recently as yesterday.
Thank you. Mine is very similar to Alan's. Was involved with sort of a discussion with Alan and Laura as far as what we wanted to say and cover when we went in and met with Dr. Chesley. We had that great opportunity to meet with her. And then I was involved with a couple conversations on some other college-related issues. Let's turn it over to Dr. Chesley for the President's report. Two exciting line items here.
Yeah. Before I start, I do want to very sincerely say how grateful I am for the opportunities that the college is continuing to give me to lead this institution, and for the board's support and confidence in me. It is a great honor for me to do this work, and I don't know if I'll be here for the rest of my life, but I'm glad to know it'll be for a while anyway. And I do want to say also just for those who may be listening as a point of clarification, the SLT gets the same raise that all administrators get at the college. It's not a different rate. So what I get and what they get and what all administrators get is the same percentage increase. So employees of the year, I am so pleased to tell you that we have another banner group of folks who've been honored by their peers for their excellent work. And you have in your packet an informational item about these folks, but I want to make sure that I name them in public and they get the credit that they deserve. They have previously been honored at college-wide gatherings that were very fun and very celebratory. Our full-time faculty member of the year is Carl Baldessari, who is the head of our aviation program and an amazing teacher and an amazing and stalwart advocate for our college. Our adjunct faculty member of the year was one of our writing instructors, Anne Marie Sargent. Our classified employee of the year was Roger Torsvald, who has been doing incredible work as one of the few full-time employees in campus safety this past year. And he is specifically our environmental health and safety officer. And if you know Roger, he's sort of omnipresent. Everywhere you need someone, he's there. And he's always smiling, and we're just so lucky to have him. We had two administrators of the year, Melissa Heiss, who is a college and career success coach, and Brittany Nichols, who is the director of foundation programs and does great work in that unit. And then last but not least, also from the advancement unit, the diversity award for this year goes to Charlotte Gilbride, who is the coordinator of the Nancy Chandler Lecture Series. And if you had the opportunity to be a part of some of those this past year, you know what great work she does to bring to the forefront issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'm happy to be able to recognize those folks. And I want to then transition to Dr. Betsy Julian, who I might, if this award existed at the college, I might say she's the employee of the decade. I that I don't get emotional, that doesn't happen. Betsy, we want to give you all the honor and recognition that you deserve for the past 6 years of truly superb work. And you and I have had a chance to chat about your legacy here, but it's important that the board have a chance to say thank you. So please.
You gonna start, Bruce?
I'm not going to start. I will maybe hopefully finish. Are there other people that would like to pile on in a positive way during this final meeting with Betsy?
I just wanted to, we're gonna miss you, Betsy. It has been such a pleasure to work with you and to see you, your leadership. You feel it here at COCC, and then to see how you have opened doors for programs and instruction to be more dynamic to meet community needs, and where I didn't think they could be moving. So I think you've made a big lasting impact, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you so much.
Well, I'll say that, is it 6 years? It went by like that. I mean,
Some of it did. 2020 maybe lasted a little longer than it needed to.
well, thank you very much for being here. I'm glad you were hired. You have done a superb job. And it's one of the most important jobs, I think, at the college, because it's what creates the classes and everything that the students and adjust them for the students and the needs, and it needs to be adjusted periodically anyway. And I would steal some of Bruce's thunder, but I won't. I'll just say that from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here, and I wish you would stay, like Lauren keeps saying. But have a wonderful retirement, and we're going to miss you a whole bunch.
Betsy, I want to say that I recall after my election, you were one of the first leaders at the college that I sat down with, and you really helped me to understand how instruction here works. And I have been so impressed at how you have led through the 3 years that I've seen you, which includes what must be 2.5 of the most challenging years of your career. And you've always done it with grace and without giving any appearance of the incredible stress you must have been under. I think that this transition, as hard as it is for us to lose you, I think it's well earned for you to now take some time to do something new.
This is Joe Krenowitz. I really appreciate what you've done for the school, particularly when you came in and really made a great cleanup of some challenges that we had and some uncertainties that was right there with us for the board. And I still remember, and I'll always keep it in my memory in regards to our trip back to Michigan, and that winter trip that we encountered, and coming back to about a couple of feet of snow and shoveling ourselves out of Redmond Airport. That was quite an adventure, and I appreciate our conversations and in our dialogue. But we wish you well, and we hope to see you about.
Betsy, I think you've done an incredible job. I just echo what everyone else has said, but to say that you've done your job with grace and humor and intelligence and humility, and you know when to use which of the foregoing. And so I'm just very grateful to you and gonna miss you.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and Jim, had you gone? Go ahead.
No, I haven't, but I will. Yeah, I would say that I like to call this position the provost, which I think in any college or university is probably the most important position because of its effect on the students' experience in the academic side, which of course is the purpose of the college in the first place. And so you have always approached this with a great deal of enthusiasm with a great deal of competence. And I think this generation of students owe whatever they've gotten out of COCC in large measure to the way you have approached this position. It's always about the students and always providing the most opportunities for their time at this institution. And so I think, I hope you find some geology trips and so on to go on in the future, but we certainly will miss you having you here at the college.
Thank you, Jim, and all others. Betsy, I'll just in closing agree with everything that people have said. From my perspective, entering my 12th and final year on the board, definitely had people not of your caliber previously, and I think there really was a sense that I wasn't really sure what the position did, and I would say literally within the first 6 months, it was pretty clear. It was like, oh, okay. And now I see the value of the position. And it just became so clear over the remaining years of your tenure here, the value of you in that position. And I think as was evident this evening, your responses, even to tough, especially to tough questions, never defensive. You were always just incredibly well-prepared, knowledgeable. I think you did just a fabulous job of educating the board as to the position and really being a bridge in a number of ways. I think you and Lori worked very well in helping us better understand sort of the proverbial look under the hood. And obviously you had a great deal of respect among the rest of the faculty and the students here at that college. So you will absolutely be missed, and we very much appreciate all of your service to the college. So thank you very much.
So thank you all, but I am leaving you in very good hands. So you met Anne Marie earlier, and it's nice to be able to leave with confidence that the school and instruction is going to continue on that path and do all sorts of amazing things under her leadership.
You're not leaving completely, are you not?
No, my plan is to take off the fall term and then to be teaching classes at the branch campuses in winter and spring, if we could get that to work out. Go back to my happy place.
Nice. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Lori.
Laboratory.
So looking ahead, a couple dates for us to actually, one date to remove from your day planner. Our August 10th regular scheduled board meeting is no more. And then our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 14th at 5:45. And then we're about to go into executive session. So let me go ahead and read what needs to be read. The COCC Board of Directors will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602D, which allows the board to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the board to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. So I'm going to stop